Excellent. All right, kia ora koutou. My name is Lisa de Klerk. I am the manager at Volunteering Otago. We are hosting the May Leaders of Volunteers, where we will be talking about National Volunteer Week. We have invited a guest speaker for this particular webinar. It is our very first webinar, and we're very much appreciative of any patience that needs to be done while we work our way through this. We have been practicing for a fairly while. But the first thing is basically just a short wee introduction to Volunteering Otago and why we're doing this. So Volunteering Otago has an office in Dunedin. We work with volunteer centres across the country. We have a sister organisation, Volunteering Central in Queenstown and Wanaka. We are hosting Leaders of Volunteers for in a webinar series format at the moment, simply because of circumstances, but we are likely to continue doing it in this way in the future. So any managers, leaders, coordinators, any people who manage and support volunteers, this is a specific training platform for you to get involved in. More than happy for people outside of the Otago region to join in with this. More the merrier, basically. But the reason why we do this is because there is a real need for networking opportunities and collaboration across the community. And the more that we have these conversations, the better that collaboration and those conversations can happen in the future. Particularly that collaboration is really important at the moment. I will be hosting this webinar. I will be moderating all the comments and the questions. So if you do have any questions about what's going on with the presentation, do put them into the chat. Sarah, who is our guest speaker, will tell you how she will be answering those questions. Probably a good idea is to introduce yourself in the chat as well, where you're from and what you do as a volunteer leader. That'll be really great, so we get to know who you are as well in the community. So that's what we're going to be doing. It's likely that this webinar will take around about half an hour to 40 minutes. Depends on how many questions you do have. So we won't be taking the full hour today, but we will be around for that full hour if it is seen as a need today. So I will just be quiet and I will pass you over to our guest speaker, Sarah McDonald.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. I'm delighted to be talking to you about National Volunteer Week today, especially connecting with a committed group of leaders of volunteers. You all play such a vital role in volunteering in New Zealand, and I feel really lucky to connect with you today and share about National Volunteer Week. I'd also like to acknowledge the important mahi that Volunteering Otago and Volunteering Central are doing, and especially through this challenging and evolving time we're all going through. It's been fantastic to see their resources, stories, and for them creating opportunities like today for us all to connect and share together. So today's presentation will be a bit of a journey about National Volunteer Week. I'll be sharing some updates from Volunteering New Zealand. I'll be talking a bit about my role at VNZ, also why National Volunteer Week is important to celebrate. I've included some FAQs throughout my presentation, so it might answer some of your questions throughout, hopefully. And I will be sharing, the main focus is talking about ideas for how you can take part in National Volunteer Week. At the end of my talk, I thought it'd be really great to hear your ideas and any feedback you have. Cool, so to begin with, I'll share a bit about Volunteering New Zealand. So we are the kaitiaki of Mahi Aroha, empowering volunteers to enrich Aotearoa New Zealand. Volunteering New Zealand is the peak body of volunteering in New Zealand. We play a national advisory and sector leadership role. We enable and support community organisations to work through a volunteer workforce. We advocate for ethical volunteering and champion the value of volunteering. So to share a few updates about VNZ in terms of our COVID-19 response, I was just thinking of a few things I could share with you today. So we've been part of the national response to COVID-19 and are working collaboratively with the Volunteer Centre network throughout New Zealand. As the Volunteer Centre network mobilise and support their local civil defence and other organisations that are supporting people at the moment. The volunteer centres have been very central in getting the National Volunteer Pandemic Guidelines out and promoting those, which has been awesome. At VNZ, we have also been in touch with our 19 member organisations. We've been providing specifically pandemic resources and virtual volunteering resources. We have been conducting research. So we've done 2 surveys. The first one was about the immediate response. The second survey, which we're currently running, is about looking at level 3 onwards. And what that would look like. And we're compiling all the data and putting them on our website as an update report. So I would encourage you all to have a look at some point if you can. So I'm the Marketing Membership Manager at Volunteering New Zealand, and I've been with VNZ just over 2 years. This will be my 3rd National Volunteer Week. So I started out at Volunteering New Zealand as a volunteer. And this really gave me the first taste of volunteer management and a deeper understanding about how important it really is. When I reflect back when I was a volunteer, there were 3 things that stood out to me, and I thought I'd share them with you today. So when I first started volunteering at VNZ, I was really surprised and I really liked how I was treated like part of the team. So I wasn't just a volunteer, I was very much part of the team. There was no difference between paid staff and volunteers. One way this was achieved was I was included in broader team meetings. So even though I was working in particular areas, I was still included in the wider conversations that were going on. I was also encouraged to share my work with the team, and I thought that was really nice. So it wasn't like I would just email them what I was working on. I was actually able to express what I was working on, and the Volunteering New Zealand team were very open to my ideas as well. So I think those experiences have really continued to this day, and I reflect on how important volunteer managers are in the enjoyment as well as of a volunteer, but how volunteering doesn't help without good leaders. So here's one of the FAQs that some of you may have been thinking about over the past month. Will National Volunteer Week be going ahead? Yes, with lots of fireworks. So I feel now more than ever is a time to celebrate National Volunteer Week. Volunteering hasn't stopped because of COVID-19. Obviously, National Volunteer Week might look a little different to how we were all expecting, but it's still very much going ahead. We've all been through quite a challenging time, and I think National Volunteer Week is an opportunity for all of us to come together for a very positive shared experience. It's also a time to reflect and celebrate all volunteers. So really, it's not about volunteers like right now. You can reflect back over the past year or years. One other important point is over the past few, must have been 6 weeks, we've all seen a rise in community connection. And I think that's quite valid right now to reflect on. I know I've heard so many stories and I've seen it myself where you know more people are going for walks and kind of waving out and talking to their neighbours and things, and that's really lovely. And I think we should kind of foster that as we celebrate National Volunteer Week. We are all part of the team of 5 million, as Jacinda says, and it really shows that we all have the power to contribute to communities. And in a lot of cases, staying at home is included in that. So that's really important to acknowledge. So why is National Volunteer Week important? There are many reasons why National Volunteer Week is important, but I've tried to select 3. So from a leader or manager of volunteers perspective, I think the most important thing is giving thanks to your volunteers. So regardless of what you do, that could be like your number 1 priority with National Volunteer Week. This is an opportunity to thank your volunteers. National Volunteer Week is also an opportunity for all of us to raise the awareness about the value and contribution of volunteers, and also the importance of the infrastructure that makes volunteering happen. So like I was saying, leaders of volunteers play a crucial role in this, likewise with the volunteer centres, because volunteering doesn't happen on its own. NVW is also a time to inspire people to consider volunteering. So there's many ways we can do that. One way is sharing stories about your volunteers, ideally from your volunteers' perspective, because then if you can get lots of stories out, then more people can connect with different stories that relate to them, and that could inspire them to volunteer in the future. So that brings up my other point, is to reflect on the value and contribution of volunteers in New Zealand. So I've included some stats here. There are 159 million volunteering hours per annum, and the value of this volunteer labour is estimated at $4 billion, which is huge. And I'm told that that is equal to the construction industry, which is pretty amazing. Also quite important to note, 89% of MPIs did not employ staff. So yeah, they're quite powerful figures when you see them written down like that. Also, when we reflect on some of these stats, obviously they're quite heavy in terms of like the economic value, but it's also important to think about the collective well-being of volunteering for all of us and include that in the conversation as well. So yeah, now the main part of my talk, ideas for National Volunteer Week. So I've created 15 ideas, tried to make them quite relevant to this current time in terms of being a bit more virtual. And I've looked at ideas from International National Volunteer Week ideas. I've looked at ideas that VNZ have done in the past and that other organisations have done for National Volunteer Weeks, and also some fresh ideas for this year. Just to note, number 15 is the best one, so try and hang on and listen to the end. So number 1, check out the National Volunteer Week website. So that should be your first point of call. Basically on the website, we have a range of resources, including a National Volunteer Week certificate, campaign copy, the heart, the National Volunteer Week heart, which you can print and download, and we'll be uploading more resources there over the next month. Number 2 is the National Volunteer Week theme, Te Hui o Te Mahitahi, the benefit of working together. So this theme should really underpin all your National Volunteer Week activities, and the benefit of working together is very relevant for now. As we've seen, there's been so much collaboration, which is really positive, and we hope that continues. So this theme should hopefully enable that to happen. I'll just quickly check the chat. Oh, awesome. So that's good, that's working. Number 3, virtual morning teas. So I know some of you may already be doing this. We're actually going to do that with our team this Friday. So basically with a virtual morning tea, you could share a recipe that your whole team could make. So while you might be physically apart, you're still kind of together and having a shared morning tea in that sense. Number 4, collaborate. I think National Volunteer Week is a fantastic opportunity for us not just to think about our own organisation, but to think of others, and perhaps even inviting other organisations to be part of virtual morning teas and other events where you can connect and your volunteers can connect with other volunteers. Number 5, be the talk of the town. So hopefully in your neighbourhoods like mine, you've seen like lots of lovely artwork and inspirational messages on the pavements, and I think this would be a fantastic time for us to really highlight messages about volunteering, you know, the NVW hashtag, the NVW heart, and really use the pavements around to really celebrate and share those messages. Number 6, NVW hearts over your windows. So again, when I think about my area, everyone's been putting like teddy bears in the windows, which is really cool. And I thought it would be fantastic if we all put the NVW hearts in the windows or messages in the windows for volunteers, so that, yeah, a different way of getting our message out there. Number 7, certificate of recognition. So like I say, on the National Volunteer Week website, there is a certificate you can download and type in your volunteer's name, and you could email that to them or send through the post. Number 8, contact your local volunteer centre, which you guys have all done today. So volunteer centres really are the heart of our communities, and they will be the best place to go to, you know, perhaps know what's going on, what activities are going on, and they may be able to help you with your campaign. Number 9, create thank you videos for your volunteers. So one video I saw a couple of weeks ago, which I loved, was from the Ministry of Health, and it's called Passing the Aroha. You may have seen it. And basically this video is for health and disability sector workers. And so anyone can create these videos. Basically, you write messages on bits of paper and hold it to the camera and kind of pass it through the frame, and then someone else takes it. So I thought that was a really creative and lovely way of showing thanks, and in a very inclusive way of getting a whole group of people to do that as well. Again, I'll just quickly check the chat. Okay, you guys can still hear me. Number 10, poems for volunteers. I know for me, when I go to write in a card, sometimes I've got in my head what I want to say, but it's really hard to actually articulate it. And I think a poem is a really lovely way to express how you feel without trying to like start from scratch. And obviously there are loads of poems out there. And in terms of how you could present that poem, you may have heard of Canva, which is a graphic design tool, which I actually used for this presentation. And it's really easy to use, and you can just pop the text in and create like a lovely graphic with the poem. Number 11, good news stories. So like I was saying, it's really important we try and promote some of the amazing volunteer work that is happening. And it's always best where possible to share it from your volunteers' perspective. Because it's very easy to talk about volunteers, but when you can include them in the conversation and let them speak and celebrate themselves, that can be quite powerful. Also, it's important to share a diverse range of volunteer stories. So then people can connect. You know, not everyone's going to connect with one story. And if we're trying to also inspire people to consider volunteering, it's quite important to share a diverse range. Thank you cards for volunteers. So I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, I was volunteering and I hadn't volunteered in a while, but I received a thank you card in the mail for National Volunteer Week, and I can still remember that. And I think that's just such a simple but lovely gesture. And yes, it doesn't all have to be online, basically. I know some of you have very large volunteer workforces, so it may not be practical for you to hand make cards. But there are a lot of creative people in New Zealand and a lot who love volunteering and actually making cards. So one idea is if you could connect with your local volunteer centre or your networks to try and see if you could get a team of volunteers potentially to help you produce some cards. Me personally, last year I was volunteering and making cards that were delivered to rest homes and hospitals. And for me, I absolutely love that because I love doing creative things. And so it was quite therapeutic, but it was also, you just feel really good helping out. So yeah, that's one idea. Cool, loving these ideas, someone said, that's good. Number 13, use National Volunteer Week to encourage regular interactions between your whole team. It sounds obvious, but I know a lot of us work in small teams and also not all of us are working full-time. So sometimes volunteers or even paid staff can be quite separate from each other, not for any reason, but that's just the way it is. So I think it's fantastic if we could create opportunities where your whole team can come together. So ideas could be quizzes, like online quizzes, or I know with my family, we have been doing online quizzes together using Trivia Master, which is quite cool, so very easy to use. So that's from a social perspective, but in terms of professional development, your teams together could attend, say, a conference or a workshop. And I know there's a lot going on at the moment. So there's a lot of opportunities where your whole team can attend something together. Number 14, research International Volunteer Weeks. Lucky for us, next week is actually National Volunteer Week in Australia. So I'll be definitely paying close attention to see what they do. One idea they have promoted last week, which I really love, is wave your appreciation for volunteers. So you can see in these photos, they've drawn smiley faces on their hands. And I could see that as quite a cool thing you could do with your own team or paid staff to volunteers. So yeah, it's quite a cool activity. And also for Australia, obviously the start of the year with the bushfires and the incredible volunteer effort of the firefighters, I think, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to, even for New Zealand, to acknowledge their volunteers. Again, I'll just quickly check the chat, all good. I've written down some other ideas that Australia have put out for National Volunteer Week. So they have said you can hold competitions such as origami, Lego drawing, online games, activities such as virtual museum tours, which sounds really cool. I've never done that before. So yeah, if anyone has, I'd love to hear about how you can do that. Platforms Volunteering Australia recommend is Zoom, Google Hangouts, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Slack. Cool, so number 15, which is the lucky last, ask your volunteers. I really think that it's very important to include volunteers in the conversation about National Volunteer Week, unless you really want a complete surprise. But I think give volunteers some options of how they would like to be recognised and celebrated and what activities they'd like to do, because it could be very easy for you to spend a lot of time and energy into something that you think they would really love. But if you don't actually know, you just don't know. So a couple of ideas I have is you could create a free survey such as Typeform or SurveyMonkey and send it to your volunteers just with some direct feedback. This is, I think, my last slide. So when we think of National Volunteer Week, I don't think we should think of it as it ending at the end of June. I think we need to think longer term and really reflecting on Te Hui o Te Mahitahi. So 3 actions I was thinking from this in the future is that collaboration. So like I say, it's fantastic today and all these opportunities where we're all connecting a bit more. So what are the opportunities to sustain this while we move forward through recovery? Also important moving forward to think about language and how we can continue to create inclusive language. I know for myself, there is a lot of talk about vulnerable people or different age groups, and I think we have to be careful how we label people and how we talk about people. So yeah, that's something just to think about. Also support. I've loved like how supportive the community sector has been. I mean, it always is, but more so now. And I think we should think together about what resources do we need and how we can better share knowledge together. So yeah, that was my final thought there. So that's the end of my presentation, but I want it to be the start of our discussion. So I would really love for you guys to now type in any ideas for National Volunteer Week that you have, or let us know what you're doing, and it would be cool to kind of have a bit of a discussion about it, or any other thoughts you have about National Volunteer Week. No one's typed anything yet, but Lisa made a good point. Remember, there is International Day of Volunteer on the 5th of December.
I was trying to let Michelle in, but now she's just popped up. So there you go. So for those of you who don't know, Michelle Kidney is the Chief Executive of Volunteering New Zealand, and she has kindly said that she will be here to answer any of your questions as well, specifically around Volunteering New Zealand as well. So.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, you did awesome job, Sarah. There's some back feed on mine, but yeah, awesome job so far. So, and I love how you ended that with a let's start a conversation. Yeah, awesome. Lisa, will you read out the questions? I think we might have frozen.
From what I can tell, there aren't any questions yet, but I can see some people typing.
Yeah, I will read out the questions for you once they're. Might be good to talk about International Volunteer Managers Day as well.
So, International Volunteer Managers Day happens on the 5th of November each year, and they've already actually set a theme for that, actually, which is called What Next? So there's a lot of conversations at the moment around the, I guess, unique opportunities coming out of COVID, collaboration and challenges. But I think not only in New Zealand, but internationally, there's a real awareness of the infrastructure requirements to support volunteering being very much in the spotlight. If we see lots of changes in volunteer workforce numbers, which is something people are potentially predicting, then all of those changes require additional volunteer management support. Yeah, so International Volunteer Managers Day is a global celebration, and it's a real focus on the role of the manager or leader of volunteers, because they're often quite an invisible part of our infrastructure. A good overview. And on the 5th of December is International Volunteers Day.
I don't think there's much in the way of questions there. So it sounds like you've just blown everybody away by your amazingness there, Sarah. So thank you very much for that. What I might do is just pop back in so that I can share what Volunteering Otago will be doing. As soon as I remember where I've written it all down. I have lots of notes. But basically, we had a a lot of events planned for National Volunteer Week, which of course now we've had to revise that quite drastically. But we are looking at still going full tilt ahead with National Volunteer Week. We will be having volunteer appreciation in a variety of different ways. We're just currently working out how best to do that. We're definitely having a virtual morning tea, which we've voluntold Kirsty that she is now taking responsibility for that. Voluntold, if you're not familiar with that, is when you're volunteered for something and you don't generally get a say in that at all. But so there will be a virtual morning tea that we'll potentially have a concert and lots of fun activities for volunteers for that with Volunteering Otago. We'll be having quite a big social media and radio campaign during National Volunteer Week. So if you have volunteers who want to share their stories or want to be interviewed on Otago Access Radio, please do send them through to us. We're more than keen to support any organisation and any volunteer as much as possible. And for managers of volunteers, we're also going to be holding a webinar series on volunteer tech. And so we've got 6 organisations who are going to be presenting their particular tech, whether it's software or whether it's a website that is dedicated to supporting not-for-profits. So you can learn different ways to be able to support your volunteers in the changing digital landscape. So that's what we're doing in Volunteering Otago. There'll be more released on that in the next couple of weeks. And as well as Australia being part of National Volunteer Week last week, I think the USA, Canada and the UK had theirs last month, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of information out there on how you can support. I know the UK has some really fantastic ideas about how to support volunteers at the moment. So yeah, that's everything there. All right, is there just the last call for any questions? And everybody stops typing. All right, well, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Michelle, for coming in as well. We really appreciate your support and your expertise in National Volunteer Week. We're very keen to be a part of National Volunteer Week nationally. So, yeah, thank you again very much, and especially to you, Sarah, for taking the time to help little old Otago in supporting volunteers across the country.
Can I just say that Volunteering Otago has been doing an awesome job. Awesome job. So it's such a pleasure to be in a network with you.
Thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate that. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Sorry, the sound's gone a bit now, just really quick, but yeah, I really appreciate this opportunity and connecting with all the leaders and managers of volunteers here. And also, let's continue this conversation together. And I've emailed Lisa a list of the links that I was talking about so she can send on to you. But yeah, thank you so much for your feedback too.
Excellent. So like I said, Sarah said, there will be an email following this. I have recorded this, so this will be going out to you in an email as well, so you don't have to worry about having to remember everything. And we'll also be putting it up on our Facebook and our YouTube channel as well. So if you do have people that you think might benefit from watching the information given by Sarah, please do share that with everybody else. In the meantime, thank you very much for all coming. I do appreciate taking time out of your busy days to come and learn with us. And thank you.
Thank you. Ka kite anō.
Brilliant. All right.
Interesting to see that there was people from Auckland and New Plymouth.